Hello, everyone, and as always, welcome back to Strategy Gaming Dojo, where we find, learn, and play one more turn of the great strategy games. And today it's back into Gary Grigsby's War in the Pacific Admirals Edition. This is our Let's Play by email with the devilish Mr. Lodrick. And it is now March 9th, 1942, and this is the setup phase. So we're going to go and do our usual. We'll go look at the stats. We'll kind of take a big overview of the map, and then, as promised, I think we'll go over to the eastern coast of Australia um, and take a peek around there. You know, what have we brought over from the States? What are we trying to bring over from the States? We'll go look at some of the traffic in the South Pacific and whatnot. Here you see at Pearl Harbor, we got ships everywhere, ships everywhere. What is this? I'm just kind of curious what this is now. It is the destroyer, the case. It's doing ASW combat out of Pearl Harbor. You always find that, if you hover over these, you learn a lot of information. Mission transport, destination Pearl Harbor, two destroyers, an AK, an AKV, and another AK in this task force. That's already dropped off, and now it's going back to Pearl Harbor. But anyway, I was kind of looking around here. I don't know what all this stuff is. DDDMS, so we have a destroyer and a destroyer minesweeper out here. Its mission is also anti-submarine warfare, and that is, a patrol zone here, patrol zone there. You can see the patrol craft themselves. What is this? The PC Tiger, PC Taney, the PG Charleston, so patrol gunboat, patrol craft out here, just up and around Pearl Harbor, making sure nothing sneaks in here. We obviously have so much traffic that comes in and out of Pearl Harbor. You want to make sure that's how you're using your patrol craft, your patrol gunboats. We have a bunch of them here at Hilo too that look like they're all coming in. Well, these are PT boats, maybe. That's an AM and a minesweeper, and the AMC, the Cockatoo, is a local minesweeper. And so, you obviously want a bunch of minesweeping operations going here too. In case he sneaks a mine laying sub in here, that could be disaster. So you want to make sure you've always got minesweeping going. But let's go up and check out the stats here on March 9th of 42. The sorties were actually pretty close this time, 64-67, 72-15 for the Japanese. Air-to-air losses, we actually had -1. Now, how in the world did that happen? Well, I think a plane we thought had went down got recovered. At least that's what I'm going to tell myself. Negative, kind of odd to have -1 air-to-air losses, but I'll take it. We'll need all the help we can get. The Japanese did have one air-to-air loss, 0-0 on the field, 0-0 on flak. We took 3 operational losses. We're reporting that the Japanese took 11. Kind of a high operational loss turn for him. Bad weather, maybe. We saw he was bombing a lot in thunderstorms and whatnot, and that can cause more operational losses. Also, going out further distances, extending range, things like that, coming off of small airfields, or, more missions you run off your carriers. Obviously, those are going to be a little more dangerous than a big old airfield out in, Burma or something. Political points, 549. Again, 650, generally speaking, to buy out a regiment, 650 to 700. Japanese scores, 15,511. We're at 7682, so you can see, he just every time inches a little bit further ahead there. This would be a major victory for the Japanese if they had it in 1945, but we're planning for that not to happen. Allied bases controlled 458, Japanese 380. Aircraft points lost 1070 to 663. Army points lost a big score there, 6738 to 123. Allied ships sunk 397. We're only showing 7 for the Japanese. We don't know if that's true. Let's go to ship sunk and go to last turn. And as you can see, the only ship that was sunk last turn was right off of Oosthaven. A destroyer, a Japanese destroyer, was hit out here. I believe that was from one of our recon aircraft. And so our recon aircraft, often when they bomb something, we don't get a full combat mission report. What it'll say down in the messages is that something so and so is reported hit. And we don't really ever know if that's true. It's just the pilot telling us that, hey, I hit a destroyer out there. Sure, you did, buddy. I don't know. It's like fish, big fish tails around the coffee bar. But, hey, look, we've now Oh, this was sunk by collision. Well, here I told you a whole story, and none of it was what happened. Sunk by collision. He has got so many ships trying to come through Oosthaven that now they're just hitting each other. He's got so many of them out there. Well, we'll take it. Cool. All right, back. So that was the only ship sunk. That is a good turn for us. Anytime we don't lose any. So I've been griping a lot about the cargo in and out of Perth. We got a lot of destroyers, divvied out there, and we didn't lose any ships this time, and that's good. Group reinforcement schedule for the aircraft. You can see the Hornet. We're 2 days out. So next time around when we set up, we'll go check out the Hornet, see what the loadout is on the Hornet, see if it's what we want, how we're going to send it through the Panama Canal and whatnot. The Vincennes will be waiting for it at the Panama Canal. It's got a couple of seagulls on it, and as we've seen, these seagulls can do some damage. The ones up in the Philippines have hit a few ships, and I brag on them every time when they go out on a mission. There's like 3 pilots left in all of the Philippines and still trying to take out stuff. Way to have heart, guys. The SkyTrain, this is a transport aircraft. We're not going to be needing that for a while unless it would be to take supplies or something. But at this point, the SkyTrains, it's not like they have a massive range. They come in at Pearl. The Beaufighters, these are fighter bombers that come in at Sydney. If my memory serves me correctly, they kind of come in with fairly crappy pilots, but and they don't come in with the full complement of 16. Whenever you see this number here, it doesn't mean that's how many planes you're getting. That's how much that squadron, that's its top off level or its max. So I think these Beaufighters, we only get like 2 or 3 of them to start with, and then we'll have to put replacements on, and any Beaufighters that get built could potentially go into the squadron or elsewhere, depending on what else is going on. Swordfish is into Aden. More of these Kitty Hawks. I really like these Kitty Hawks. That takes some of the pressure off the American air, and you can put some of those American air assets back out into the South Pacific instead of protecting Australia proper. These 16 go into Brisbane. We'll see whether the pilots are any good or not. I just don't remember. And then we get 16 of them into Perth as well. And you see there the Formidable, a new British carrier. Finally, we get another British carrier after losing the first one we received. That does not include the Hermes, which was also hit, but at least we got that back to Aden. But that's a light carrier. But as far as the big carriers go, and if you want to go back some videos. I mean, people talk about British carrier doctrine. It's definitely different than what the U.S. carrier doctrine was, and people make really good points about why that is. I mean, the British thought that most of their carriers were going to be over in the Mediterranean. Well, you're going to have a lot different carrier setup when you're, in the Mediterranean than you are out in the Pacific. The Americans had kind of stole their carrier doctrine a little bit from the Japanese and kind of came up with a different one. Well, the Brits, of course, thinking they were going to be fighting more in Europe, have a different loadout. I mean, it's not a very good loadout for fighting in the Indian Ocean or the Pacific Ocean. For that matter, but we'll look more at it when the Formidable comes in. Kitty Hawk's into Perth, Newcastle comes in. I'm not sure where that comes in because we're just looking at the plane loadout now. Ship availability, I guess we can find out. Let's do the old double. Well, you know what? Instead of doing that, let's do it by type really quickly here. Yeah, well, it's upside down. Now let's do it by type. And it kind of goes from most important to least important. We get this CVB, the Midway, October 13th, 1945. Well, we're not going to get to play around with that much. There's the Hornet. We'll look at that when it comes in next turn. The Wasp, the Essex. As you can see, I mean, once we get the Wasp here in 42, it is a long wait for the Americans. Now, these aren't all directly in order. You can see here's some 43s down here, like the Yorktown 2, the Lexington 2. Once we get into mid 43, we've got pretty good parity with the Japanese at that point for carriers. But until then, I mean, it's not like in 1942 all of a sudden you have parity. So you got to be careful with your American carriers because if he wipes those out in early 42, I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, he can boss the entire map. And so you got to be very judicious. I know a lot of people, like in our Warplane Pacific game, yelled at me and said, "Hey, get your carriers out there." Well, okay, but I mean, if they get destroyed, you've got literally no defense and it's game over. So you got to be, you got to make sure you're surprising him if you do take your American carriers out in 1942. Now you can see the Brits here. Let's see, 6 days for the Formidable, 50 days for the Illustrious. Um, yeah, I mean the Brits don't get a whole lot, of course. Uh, you know, you can see most the other ones are going to come in 44, 45. Now, are there some British carriers in here? Not really. Now, what I just told you about American carriers is partially true. I'm talking about the big carriers, but the Americans started also cranking out light carriers and really cranking them out in 1943. You can see here the Cabot, the Monterey, the Cowpens, the Bella Wood. Let's just go look at the Bella Wood and we'll see what we would get on here. 12 Hellcats, 18 Avengers. All right. So, you're getting 33 aircraft on them. If you bundle enough of those up, it kind of equals one big carrier, right? As of right now, our big carriers can do 90 planes. So it would take three light carriers to equal a full carrier kind of in 1943. And you can see, I mean, the Americans start cranking them out and they just don't stop. I mean, it just goes on and on. We actually get the Suwannee here in December. Do we get any before that? Yeah, we get some in October. Nassau. These all come into Tacoma. Gosh, I didn't even know Tacoma was so important. But you can see we get three of them. Well, we get one in August. We keep moving up the counter here. Of August of 42, the Kapahi. Hmm. Okay. Cool. As you can see, I mean, now that we're into carrier escorts, not light carriers. So let's go look at this Kapahi. What do you get the load out there? Well, that's not bad. Well, how is that possible? Aircraft capacity 28, but it says its initial loadout is 24 Wildcats, 24 Dauntlesses. I don't know how that's going to work. I think that those automatically upgrade. Maybe these escorts do, or we can put them over onto a main carrier. But you can see the CVEs, the number, the Americans. I mean, at some point, it almost gets kind of ridiculous, right? I mean, we're still going. What is that, like 5 pages in? And the Brits get some as well, as you can see. And then American battleships, you can see we don't actually, I say we don't get a whole, I mean, this is a lot of battleships, don't get me wrong, but it's not like we just crank them out like we do the carrier escorts. The Valiant comes into Cape Town in July. That's something to keep our, and in June, oh, these are cruisers. All right, now as you could, the Americans love light cruisers and destroyers. But anyway, I don't know why I went down that rabbit hole other than to just show you how many dang carrier escorts we get, I guess. Let's double flip this so we can see what's coming in the short term. Tankers, Hornet, Vincennes. We've talked about all this. Formidable. We get the grouper in, submarine, another KV, another submarine, the drum in at Pearl Harbor. Okay, so on and so forth. We're just going to leave that as is. Ship availability, ground reinforcement schedule. We don't get anything for the next couple of turns, and then we get a big fourth group army here into Chungking. Well, that's just the headquarters, actually. I think that got destroyed at some point, and then we're going to send it back out. Jingsha War Area. I actually have that up by Kienko. Do we get any parts of Fourth War? No, I think they're already still on the map. We'll have to check that out. Get a couple of new cores in at Chungking there. Well, I don't know if they're new or they got destroyed. A couple of parts of 31st Army you see there. And then this core part of 3rd Group Army. Okay, and a 21st Group Army as well. They just keep appearing. Chinese men just keep haunting your dreams. The big thing here is in 23 days we get these British brigades in, and they can finally start getting over to that East Coast, east of Calcutta, and put up a fight because he's going to be coming at Rangoon hard. We probably won't get him there in time, but yeah, I mean, that's still 3 weeks away, right? He's going to make a move on Rangoon sooner rather than later. Let's take our big trip around the map, all of the action around Karachi. Now, I talked about the patrol craft that are by Pearl Harbor. You can see we have motor launches out here doing ASW. We've got a KV out here, motor launch there. We've got PG, patrol gunboat there, all of that doing ASW in and around Karachi. I mean, there's just so much activity here. You got to do it. You got to do it. Hold on. I'm going to grab a drink really fast. Let's pause this. I'll be right back. All right. After 20 minutes of just talk, 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 had to get a little drink there. Let's see what's in port at Abadan. We've got 13 ships in port there, way too many. We need to get these AKs going somewhere. Now, they can either be batched up here and go to Karachi. A lot of these came back and auto disbanded because I had them a little mismatched, so I had them auto disband. Now, the Fern Castle will go by itself as a tanker. It's got a faster speed than all of this, but some of the bigger endurances here, I'm going to actually batch up and send to Cape Town. And that's what you can kind of see down here. I've done that with a lot of different ships. So you see all these AKs, they're going out to Cape Town. You see these AKs, they're going to Cape Town. More AKs to Cape Town because there's just no, we're getting plenty of stuff into India. And if you look at Abaddon, the supply, it's only 28,000. I mean, this is all fuel, right? And if you dump the fuel in here, it'll get turned into supply on the subcontinent. So, you don't have to just keep taking supply there. It's much better to gather up some whatever supplies here, take it to Cape Town, and then around to Australia if you can, because this will crank out. I mean, let's look down at Bombay. Bombay itself has 983,000 tons of fuel and 423,000 tons of supply. It started the game with almost nothing. I mean, we've dumped all of that in here. And so, really, if you just keep kind of a big group, I say a big group of tankers with the lower endurance up here at Abadan, and just have them go back and forth to Karachi, you're fine. So you can see all of the different units I have going to, ships. I've got a tanker here batched up with some cargo going to Cape Town. I've got this tanker is actually just waiting out here, the Fenris. It's a big one. Um, I'm gonna refuel something. I can't remember exactly what though. And then I have something here at Socotra, just kind of building that up. What's out here at Aden? We look at this. We got a lot here too. The AKs, you want to keep some of them around, but like the faster ones, usually I would do this by speed. Keep APs here, AMCs here, and then a few of your faster AKs. So, the 14, something like that, and they can just very quickly go dump troops in Karachi. But if you look here, I mean, it does have some fuel here at Aden, but not a ton of supply. And usually you're going to have to bring supply from Abadan to Aden. So this is really just where you pick up troops. That's it. Okay. What's out here? I think there's a group of transports. No, this is air transport, but it's coming back to Aden, and we'll actually have that auto disband when it gets there. Oh, this is what we've got: the Revenge, the Griffin, Hotspur, the Norman, and the Jumna. I got them the hell out of here. They're going back up to Aden just to park. They're going to sit here. They're going to wait until we get more capital ships instead of putting them in danger. When we got hit at Bombay before, that scared me enough. Now, out here in India, the only real thing to look at, all of these are just sitting around as garrisons for the most part. And as I've talked about before, you want to go look and make sure you've got the least amount there to get away with, calling it, the garrison fulfilled. And you'll see that in green if you've got enough. So like Lucknow, 60. Well, I've got a unit in here that's 93. The Nashera Brigade, okay, but this is locked. As you can see, you can't move it. So, I mean, there's nothing you're going to do with that. I should have these all piecemealed out to have the least amount serving as garrison as possible. The only action that's happening here is at Delhi. it's a decent place if you want to. You got a good size airfield, and you're never going to have a lack of supply really at Delhi to train some bombers if you want to. And so I've got a training group in here, train 100% ground attack on these Blenheims, just training them up. We got 14 pilots for 14 planes. We could actually go get a couple more, just put them in here, get those training. Usually you'd want to have like 19. I always try to have about 3 to 5 more pilots than you have planes. That keeps the fatigue down. It also trains up more pilots as you go along. Now, you don't want too many in there. For one reason is they won't train as fast if you got more in there. Another thing is usually if you pull too many, you're going to have some of your squadrons that do not have good enough. They have a lot of bad pilots. I mean, you have a lot of bad pilots at the start anyway, but if you start spreading them too thin, they're really bad. I mean, like down in the 20s or 25, those get operational losses, and if God forbid they get in combat, you got a real problem. Okay, so that's really the only action that's happening, kind of in the center of the country. This is where all your production is. All of that fuel is coming down these gas lines, right? Out at Bombay, of course, now I've got a lot of planes here when he's nowhere close. We have lost sight of the main carrier task forces. I just don't know where they are. I'm trying to get more supply if I can into Rangoon. As you can see, this is now been supplied up. But here's the real headliner. He's moved now into Burma. And so the first place he'll go is Mole Mine. I'm trying to get more down there, but it's not going to be enough. I mean, we've got what? We've got a battalion, 2 battalions down here. That's not going to do anything with 47. I do have a tank battalion heading down here just to try to hold him up a little bit. We've got a lot at Pagoo. When I say a lot, that's all relative, right? 341 on the garrison there. At Rangoon, 517. So this will fall back into Rangoon, right? So we'll end up with maybe around 800 in combat strength there. Let's hope anyway. If he brings a big enough army, that's not going to matter. The other place I want to go and defend is Mandalay. Now you can go across to Schwebo, but Mandalay is worth 40 to us, and so I try to defend it. But again, he likes to bundle these up into big armies and hit us. So we'll see. I mean, we may lose Rangoon and Mandalay. If we do, then all of a sudden, Akyab, Chittagong, Cox's Bazar, Lido, he can even come up there and break down, our flying transport into China. So that's why I was saying those British battalions that are going to show up are very important, and we'll get them over here into these 3 places. Now at Calcutta, we've got enough to hold off quite a bit, 612, and we've got a lot more that can come around the corner here because we've got 693 at Madras. Now out of Colombo, we've looked at that plenty. We do just see the Japanese sub there. We're not going to talk about Cape Town because I do want to get to Australia this time. So let's just fly over China. We've talked about all of this in those last few episodes. Now, this is worrisome. 16 enemy units just south of Hanyang. It looks like he's moving back to Kukong, though. So he's got this big group here at Wu Chao. We've kind of, well, I say big group. We're pretty evenly matched, although now we see he's got 18,000 troops, all right? But you can see he's got an army moving this way, or armies potentially, and he's got another one, maybe you can see the divot right there moving there. We did get knocked across the river here. We're going to try to get back to Hanyang. Now we're part of Third War area, which is there. We talked about all this, the split here at Yan'an. We have the Loyang group trying to get back. They get bombed every damn turn, but you can see how much we have in this hex. We've got First War Area, Jingsha War Area, 14th Group Army, 15th, 24th, 34th, 36th, 39th, and then all their component parts. We've got a second page. We've got a third page of units out here. All told, 3315 on the combat strength. And you can see here they're low on supply. We got to get them out. I'm trying. I mean, we just cannot afford for that to get trapped. trying to put up a defense at Lanchao with the Red Chinese Army. Mao Zedong, let's hope he fights out here as well as he did in the Civil War. 1217, I mean, it's a good sized force, but who knows? With the way Lodrick plays, he's just going to keep bringing units up here till he's got 100,000 men up here. We got to start sneaking behind him and cutting his supply. We've talked about that, but we got to get really partisan out here. In the Philippines, you can see we're still holding on to Cagayan. Those are the seagulls we've been talking about. We've still got a few bases out here, but they're starving out. You know, they're not going to last long. You can see he's starting to move here. He's taken the center part of the island. Just got this conga line of ships coming over. This is where he's got so many ships. Destroyers are hitting each other. A lot coming into Oosthaven, but you can see he's almost made it up to Palembang now, and he's coming for Batavia. So we will lose Java. It's just a matter of when. Let's hope we can hold on into, let's say, mid-April. That's what I would love to do if we can. You can see all the ships here. Does he have his carrier force? Have we spotted his carrier force over here? We're not seeing it. Well, the heck if I know. I don't know where they are. A lot of destroyers there, but he knows there are a lot of subs in the area, so maybe that's why. Okay, down to Australia. You can see I'm bringing supply into Dobby, and then it'll go to Broome. I'm also going to pick up resources at Headland, try to get all of this down to Perth. All right, we talked about Perth, quite a bit as far as trying to get destroyers out here to run escort. And like I said, this time we're going to go around the eastern bend here. But before we do that, let's just look up here at Port Moresby. Well, you can see he's dropping off more troops. We've got him, I don't want to say isolated, not really. I mean, he's sitting in the hex with the base. We've been shelling him from the base. This is essentially nothing. I mean, they've got nothing left. But I'm just sitting him here so he doesn't get any supply there. But once he drops off troops, not a whole lot we can do about it. You can see all of our sub activity here, but we just haven't caught anything yet. And then we don't know where what I'll call his Moresby carrier group is. I've landed on Espiritu Santo, Luganville, Afate, out in the New Hebrides, New Caledonia. We're up here getting things into Comac finally, Suva building up. A lot of things going on at Auckland. After we do Australia this time, I think the next couple of episodes, we're going to spend all out here on these islands and how to set those up. We've got, task forces everywhere down here into Rarotonga, Tahiti, Haiva-Oa. You can see all of the stuff coming from the Panama Canal over here to Haiva-Oa. Yeah, I mean, we've just got things coming around the bend. What do we have here? Transports. We've got combat engineers and artillery. We've got big AK force that's actually heading back to Los Angeles. Glad that didn't get caught up by anything. We're resupplying Canton because he's not come after it yet. Stuff out to Johnston and whatnot. And then if we get back here, you can see all of the activity at the Panama Canal. We've got a big tanker group that's coming back into Los Angeles. We'll get them right back out to Australia probably. We've got plenty of fuel at Pearl Harbor. So really, I'm trying to send as many tankers as I can to Auckland, to Australia, if we can do that. You can see all of the patrol craft on the west coast, and then we have we've got plenty of fuel at Pearl Harbor because I've got these huge tankers coming from Canada. Oh, Canada. And they're just Vancouver. You can see CS Pearl Harbor from Vancouver. Well, that is 42,000 tons every time we just go back and forth with just 3 tankers. And I've got a lot of KV with that, right? Can't be losing those big boys. Alaska, well, I mean, it's fine. I mean, we're resupplying ADAC, bringing things out here to ADAC. I've got a transport. What's it dropping off? Well, it's already dropped off. These combat engineers, they have a Assault 28. That's why I like to bring them to these islands because they can build up the airfield out here and they give you assault value pretty good. A lot of patrol craft here around Dutch Harbor and Cold Bay. Okay. Kodiak, always build that up. Anchorage. All right. All right. Let's go to the east coast of Australia. I'm going to pause it again. I'll be right back. All right, I come from a land down under where people something and men chunder. If you remember the old Men at Work song, that's how old I am. I think that was like 1983. Let's start in Seduna. And what happens in Seduna? Well, you want to build up the airfield. Why is that? If you need to fly aircraft from the East Coast to the West Coast or vice versa, you're going to want to do it through Seduna. And so you got the base force out here, cool, and then build fort, expand the airfield, and just get it going right from the start. And that way, if you need to fly something out to Kalgoorlie, it could go through Esperance potentially. So you build up this Seduna. Sometimes people forget about it, but you do want to build that up. Otherwise, there's not usually a whole lot that goes on here. You could put some ships in here. I mean, it's only a level one port, but look, if you're getting pressured at Perth or getting pressured at Melbourne, you may bring some ships up into this area or dock them there at Seduna. Port Augusta, it's got a little better port. It's a natural 3, has a level 7 airfield. You can train some, like I've got these weird ways training here. You probably don't want to overstack it here. It's only a level 1 airfield at this point, although it can go up to a 7. Base Force, engineers. I've got just building forts up here. I actually will get the airfield going a little bit there. Adelaide, I probably use more than some people, I would say, and that's because it's a really nice port. It's a 5 right now, a natural 4, but that means you can take it to a 7. The airfield also is a 4, and you could take that up, as big as you can get it, a 9 or a 10. And if or 9. If you look at Adelaide here, I'm actually just building the fortifications right now. We've got plenty here. It is nice to have another level 7 port though, to expand. But the problem is, and you can see, I brought in too much supply into Adelaide here. I actually dropped some off, but I've got the supplies required here set way too high. So let's back that off, 855, and that means it'll go put, it'll release those supplies. What is that button? You may be asking, supplies required. This is if you want to store some supplies. So if you're going to have a big force coming somewhere or something, you may want to jack this up so that when they get there, you've got enough supply for them. But that's what that is. At Adelaide, I don't have a whole lot. I've got a machine gun battalion here with 20 assault strength. I've got some engineers, and I do have the coastal defense unit that is static here in Adelaide. You can see no ships here now, but I could certainly bring some up here. Maybe I'm sending some around. Let's go see. No, these are actually coming to Melbourne. I don't want them to go to Melbourne. I'm going to put them in Adelaide because we just don't need them right now. These are a bunch of support ships, repair ship. We've got submarine tender. We got a destroyer tender. I mean, I'm not saying I don't need them necessarily, but they're worth a lot of points, and we don't need them so desperately that I want to put them out there for him just to pick off for easy points. And so let's put them actually in Adelaide, and then you always want to have those disband and do not unload when it comes to tenders. Okay, so around there, and then we come into Geelong. Not a whole lot to do there. Portland, Geelong, Portsea. They're only going to have like a base force or the coastal force, right? Out in Tasmania, we haven't talked a lot about it. Got a base force here at Burnie. I have at Launceston. We've got the 22nd Motor Battalion here, and we've got a base force. And then down at Hobart, we have the coastal artillery and a base force. Not a whole lot. I took the one infantry unit that was over here and put it over into Australia for now, anyway. Look, if the Japanese want to come down here and take Tasmania, be my guest, I guess. It would put us in a really tough position. I mean, it's worth 100 points for Japan there, 40 there, and 50 there. We would certainly have to react to it, but you've only got so many units, and him taking Townsville, let's say, is a whole bigger worry to me than him taking Launceston down in Tasmania. For one thing, it's very, very hard logistically for him to support that. We could start to bring things back over here and have one head. The Battle of Tasmania, the Tasmanian campaign, could be kind of fun. Now that I said that, I kind of hope he does it. Do we have anything coming out here? No, I don't see anything south of Australia. Melbourne, I've just got these two groups of Weirways doing some basic search out here, I do have American transports in, and you see the 161st Infantry, we are offloading, and you see it here. The 161st Infantry is now here, and the 198th Artillery Battalion. If we look at so I don't really know what to do with these transports. Right now I'm having them auto disband. We certainly do not want these APs caught in Melbourne. And so maybe we actually don't want those to auto disband. No auto disband, and we once the troops get off, I think we take them out of here. We either go to Adelaide or we just get them immediately back to LA with refuels along the way. Right now in Melbourne, I've got a 288 going. Let's see what all we're attached to. Australia Command, armored. Okay, and you see them here. Here are the two armored units. We've got the 44th Australian Battalion. That's right there. That has got an assault of 42. Okay, cool. And then we've got the 12th Australian Brigade, and you can see they don't have an asterisk next to them, so they're kind of independent, right? They're not part of a bigger formation. But the 161st is, and you can see that right there. And if we go here, it's part of the 25th American Infantry Division. Infantry Regiment back in Pearl Harbor, another one back in Pearl Harbor. 161st is now in Melbourne, and then you see what's still out on the task force. Now, we got a little problem here. Part of the 161st was on a transport that got hit, and now it's sitting at Tahiti. Well, I mean, it doesn't have a whole heck of a lot, but it does have 35 motorized support in it. Eventually, we'll take a small transport, probably gather it up and come around and bring it to Melbourne. So the whole 161st is together, and we can put the 25th Infantry Division together. Other than that, nothing. We got 33 ships in port, though, and let's search those by type. We've got these are minesweepers. We've got a submarine tender. We've got gun tenders. We've got some AOs out here. Okay, some these are really short range ones, the tons as I call them. Tankers we've got here, AKs. This all needs to be batched up and go somewhere else. Maybe not these little AKLs, because I usually take these and run them just continuous supply to Bernie and Lawston. And so these two AKLs will stay here. They're 1 point ships. They also will attract Japanese fire. If he does start to come over here, it's possible they will divert something and they're only worth 1 point. It's one way to use these 1 point cargo ships almost as recon, right? Because they'll get hit first if they're out here. So we need to batch all of this up. Either send it to Cape Town, okay, like the Queen Elizabeth probably needs to go to Cape Town, or send it back to Los Angeles, or stash it, along the way here. But Melbourne is too exposed, and we don't even have fighters over the top, right? So we'll need to batch all of that up and get it the hell out of here. Back here is Wagga Wagga. I just like to keep a plane here so I can say Wagga Wagga. We've just got some transports training here. It's 6 of the C-47 Skytrains. We talked about their range. You can see here their normal is 10, extended is 12. Not bad. I mean, you can fly out to Lord Howe Island. You can't make it out to Norfolk, really, and you can't go all the way across. Not quite enough to get to Nomaya, which is really too bad. You may be able 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No, you can't get out to Comac either. Really, those are made to be flying supplies over to Port Moresby. Well, that ship has sailed, pun intended. Okay. So that's Wagga. Just keep some engineers here. I'm not even expanding anything. No reason to eat up supply. We've got a supply shortage on the East Coast. At Canberra, I've just got engineers here. I will train planes here. You can take this airfield, quite a bit higher. And I do try to train, get planes trained up there. At Port Kembla, I just have this cavalry force. It's worth a 114 though. It's on the rail. We could very quickly get that ready to go, but I don't like to keep Kimball completely uncovered because were the Japanese to come down here and land, I at least want something to be here, So I take this cavalry force that can move very quickly, for instance, into Sydney. if he came directly to Sydney or if he came to Newcastle, I also have an armored, faster moving motorized unit here along with the Newcastle Fortress. No ships, no planes, nothing like that in either of these. But then we get into Sydney. All right, at Sydney, what do we have? Well, you always want to have fighters over the top at Sydney. I'm probably not, giving away a big secret there. Right now, we only have 8 Warhawks in here. That is not good enough. We have got to get more planes here. I think I have some at Nomaya. I can fly to Brisbane and down to Sydney, but we got to have more than 8 Warhawks down here. This is very early on, like in January, February, this Warhawk group and you split them up, I think they actually withdraw. They do March 15th. So that's coming up in just 6 days. So we've really got to get some Cobras or other Warhawks or something in there. Transport group, this just dropped off American troops, and now we need to get them the hell out of here. I've got them going around to Melbourne. I could batch them up with the other transports, but I think we'll just send them straight out to Los Angeles. You can see everything we have here. It only adds up to a 390. um, you can see some things. I've already got them on strat mode here that can go out into the Southwest Pacific. So I may want to take some of those transports and do that. We've also got 16 ships in port, couple of APs, a lot of AKs. Probably just want to keep these AKLs here. This is a prime bombing target, right? So we don't have many planes over the top. You don't want those AKs 5 and 6 points. It all adds up. We've also got the this Dutch. Is that Dutch? The Lemaire? Yeah. Transport. Oh, I'm bringing this in here to actually take some of those Southwest Pacific things out, right? So we'll go get those and batch. All right. Let's see. So here in Sydney, we have this transport coming back. Okay, we looked at that one. Okay. The destroyer's got a little bit of a problem here. System damage is out of fuel itself. Luckily, it can always borrow from other ships in the task force. Never forget that. Just because one ship runs out, they do share within a task force. So anyway, into Sydney here again. That's got to get out of here. That's just way too many points to have sitting here. We kind of looked at the units. You can see the Southwest Pacific strat. Those are ready to move if we want to move them out here into the Tasman Sea and beyond. What do we have at Newcastle? Well, at Newcastle, we've got this the 2/7th Armored Regiment. Now, again, this is another thing. I like to keep the mobile units, at these different places so we can move them very quickly if we need to and kind of react to wherever the Japanese want to land. If they want to land in Australia, I mean, we'll see if that even happens, but we're certainly building up for that eventuality. We've got the submarines here. The Argonaut and the Nautilus. I have brought a lot of American submarines over here to Australia. They just like to party down under, maybe. They're coming into Sydney here. Are the Argonaut, the Nautilus, and you can see returning to port to replenish. When you set up patrol zones, when they run out of fuel or start to run out of fuel, or they run out of ordnance. So if they run out of torpedoes, or in this case, they've still got their torpedo load. Now these are the Mark 10 torpedoes. That's exciting. I mean, anytime you're carrying the Mark 10, you got a chance to actually do damage. The Nautilus, I think that was the Nautilus, is carrying the Mark 14, though, unfortunately. But the Argonaut is carrying Mark 10s. They'll come back to Sydney. They can rearm there. It's a level 7 port. I mean, it's beyond a 7. It's a 9. Also an 8 airfield at Sydney. I should have mentioned those things. But yeah, that's where I have a lot of the subs come back in, of course, into Sydney. You could have them come around to Melbourne, although I don't know. I mean, that's a long ways around here to Melbourne, right? Also, for the subs, Townsville, it starts as a 4. You can take it into a 7. You also have Brisbane, that starts as a 5. Obviously, you could take that into a 7. It's a natural 4. You can always go 3 above whatever it kind of the natural port level is. Well, we'll deal with this stuff out here next time. Of course, I'm starting to run out of time a little bit. At Brisbane, what do we have? We've got one group here that's Southwest Pacific, so they're not locked onto the Australian continent. First Medium Regiment, Okay, we'll see. I mean, it's artillery. Do we want to take the chance of a big transport ship going out there and losing a lot of points? Probably not. Not for artillery. But if we can bunch it up with something else, maybe we will send it out. Or it could just potentially stay here. If we look down here, 508 on the garrison, because we have the 5th Australian Division here, the 2nd Australian Cavalry Brigade, which is a strong unit, 133. We've got the 1st Motor Brigade, which is a 111 assault value, and we have some artillery and the Brisbane Fortress. And so, I mean, look at that, 230 up for the 5th Australian Division. So I have one Australian Division there. In Sydney, we have the 2nd Australian Division. That's 221. So as you can see, the Australian divisions, they're around 220 at least until we get them all the way built up. So I've got one in Sydney, one in Brisbane, probably no shocker to you there. As we move up, you want to be careful that you don't leave Maryborough, Bundaberg, uncovered. Why is that? Well, if the Japanese land here, they sever the rail, and now all of a sudden they've got north and south split up. And if you look up here in the north, the only way it can really get enough supply and fuel up there is through this railway that runs, all the way from the south. Because if you look where it branches off here, it doesn't connect. So this railroad right here on the coast is the only way up or back. Anyway, so Maryborough, we do have a motorized unit, assault value 22. At Bundaberg, I also have one. I can tell you I'm moving a lot more things over here to Australia as well, American units. So we've got the 161st in. When we go to Rockhampton, you'll see we've got the 185th over here. And if we click on the 185th, we look, it's part of the 40th Division. And I've got the 108th on a task force on its way here. The 160th will buy out of Los Angeles and, completely reconstitute this division back here at Rockhampton. In my mind, Rockhampton is probably the most important town in Australia for this game. For one thing, it's worth 225 points to the Japanese. So it's a huge magnet for the Japanese player to come attack it. It's just a lot of points. It also, I think, when it goes through the mind of a Japanese player, they're like, well, I know Sydney will be well defended. I've heard of Sydney. I know Brisbane will be well defended. Brisbane, that's a major town in Australia. But then they look at Rockhampton, they're like, do I really, I don't know much about Rockhampton. They hover over it and they see it's worth 225 points. They're like, that's where I'll land because I know at 750 for value to Japan that Brisbane is well defended. Sydney, 2,500 for Japan. They know these two places are going to be swarming with Australians and Americans, but they may think, I can slip in here at Rockhampton. Townsville's too obvious. Let's slip in here to Rockhampton. So always build the heck out of this, and I always do. And if we look here, I've already got, it looks like a lot of units, but I've got this up to 285, right? I've got the 185th. We already looked at that. This actually should not be in one US amphib. Those should be the Marine units. That's a Marine command. This is Army, right? And so this really needs to be flipped, but I don't want to spend the money on it yet. So 10th US Army is what this thing should be in. I just made a mistake there, and I put it under the 1st U.S. amphib. But that's a Marine command. That's out here. As a matter of fact, 1st Marine or 1st U.S. is, I believe, here at Suva. Let's look here. Yeah, 1st U.S. Amphibious Corps. And if we look here, located at Suva, U.S. Marines, right? So this is Army. These regiments that you get up here are Army. So anyway, I've got Rockhampton building. We've got just 8 Warhawks. Again, that's why I'm so excited to get those Kitty Hawks. Did we already get some in here? Oh, we didn't really talk about this. We've got 2 groups of dive bombers here at Brisbane. We've got 17 Warhawks and 21 Airacobras. So I've gotten a lot of American air power. Now, I skipped these over I need to dole them out. We've seen here in several places we don't have a lot of aircraft, so we'll be doling those out. Up to Bowen, in Bowen, I've got an American, the 193rd Tank Battalion that's here, a base force as well. This is only a 62, and so we'll need more at Bowen. Bowen's another one. If the Japanese player's looking at it, Bundaberg, Rockhampton, Bowen, boom, boom, boom. Try to sever the north from the south, and they're a little less obvious than Townsville or Brisbane. Up into Townsville, we've got more on the way here. What is this? I don't even know what this is. 4th Australian Division is on the move at a 256 assault strength. If we look in Townsville itself, we've already got the 1st Australian Division here. That's got a 300. That ain't bad. And then we've got the 4th Australian Cavalry, 141. We've got the 39th Australian Battalion. Now, that was supposed to make its way over to Port Moresby, but just couldn't get over there. 53rd Australian, pretty sure that's supposed to end up in Moresby too, and didn't get over there. We've got Coastal Artillery here, and we've got 1st Australian Corps. If we look here at 1st Australian Corps, it's an Australian unit with 3 forts. So it's just an overall. It's not like 1st Australian is like 1st US, where it's more of a Marine unit. The Australian commands, they can command all Australians. And so sitting right up here, now this is just the general, overall Australian command, which I think sits in Sydney. Yeah, there it is, Australian Command. And then we have also here 1st Australian Army, Eastern Command, and RAAF Command. All of these in Sydney, but we do have 1st Australian up here. Now, I haven't wanted to pay the points to change some of these over. Now, you can see the 39th Australian Battalion is already part of 1st Australian, but the rest of them are in the General Command. Look, if things start really heating up in Townsville, I'll send Australia Command up there just to try to get any bonus we can, right? These are the Kitty Hawks. These have already come in. 16 Kitty Hawks at Townsville. You can see we've got 20 pilots here. Let's just kind of look at their stats here. Extended radius 5, normal radius 4, okay. What about the aircraft data? You can see here, you really want to fly these at 15,000 feet and no higher, which is too bad. I mean, 15,000 feet, the Japanese are always going to be coming over the top of us. We do want to click that back to a 4 because I don't want it getting out to the extended radius. So we click that back, but the big highlight is our pilots, 61 average air to air. Now, we've got a few guys down here that aren't great yet. But we've got a whole bunch up here that are actually pretty damn good pilots, and so that's great just for what's coming in here. So we got a full division here. We've got a second division right here. We could even put that maybe in Bowen or up in Cairns. In Cairns, definitely the Japanese players love to land there. We have just this Warhawk group right now. They are split up. I'm not exactly sure. We haven't lost any of these planes. It's not giving us a projected size here or what the size max is. I'll have to look at that one. I'm not exactly sure what's going on there. We, of course, have the Catalinas out here. We have some Marauders here to do naval attack. So we've got them ready in case the Japanese sail anywhere in this area. Then we have 23 P-40E Warhawks. Now, these come off in 6 days, though, which is really unfortunate. If we look at these Warhawks, again, they're a 15,000-foot aircraft, really. Going down to 11 maneuverability isn't going to do you much good. We have halfway decent pilots out here. I mean, there are 65. We've got some really good ones. We got a few that aren't quite so good. Usually with the American pilots, the problem isn't necessarily their air-to-air skill, it's more their experience. They just haven't flown a lot. These guys will be really good when they get more experience. Okay, I think we're going to leave it there. It went a little longer than I wanted it to, but I wanted to make it all the way up here to Cannes, and then also Cookton. We have some planes as well. 8 more Warhawks, and then we have some Banshees up here to also do some naval attack. They also will be removed soon. But anyway, when we come back next time, it's going to be the combat resolution for March 9th and 10th. We'll see what happens, but at least now you have some ideas of what's happening here on the east coast of Australia, getting a lot of American units in here, and there are more on the way. If we went and looked east of here, you would see transport after transport with the Yanks ready to land in the land down under. So anyway, this has been Strategy Gaming Dojo. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll talk to you next time. Have a great one.